Have you ever noticed how it seems like every single person has financial advice for you? Some might be rich, some might be broke, and some of the advice, well, it might be solid, while some of it, let's just say, is not the best advice. And as someone who's heard a lot of financial advice over the years, from parents, from my coworkers, social media, random podcasts, financial YouTubers, I wanted to make a tier list because I've heard it all. I've heard save every dollar. I've heard buy a house right away, never use credit cards, start a business, whatever it might be. So in this video, I want to break down the most common money advice from S tier to F tier and some of the stuff that's actually going to help you and some of the stuff that's just, in my opinion, just plain bad advice when it comes to your finances. So let's get into the video. All right, so the first advice is gonna be when someone tells you you need to budget every penny. And I don't think this is inherently bad advice. Look, some people love to do this, but the problem with budgeting every single penny that you make is a lot of people who don't really love finances or really love analytics or anything personal finance, they're gonna burn out honestly within a week, right? You don't need to micromanage your life. You just need to automate kind of what matters and just find quick ways to give yourself some flexibility. So, I would think of a plan, right? So, like a budgeting plan and not some type of prison that you're putting yourself into when it comes to your finances. So, while budgeting every penny is not inherently bad advice, I do think if the majority of people tried to do this, they would find themselves hating it. So I don't think this is bad advice, but this is definitely a half-truth advice. This is something that really only applies to someone if you really are into your finances, and if you're not, you definitely don't need to budget every single penny you make. The next advice that you might hear people say is boring wins. Now, this is absolutely true. Boring will more than likely be the way most people get rich. Now, yes, while you might hear of someone winning the lottery or someone hitting it big on a cryptocurrency, realistically, for the majority of people, boring is undefeated. Whether it's index funds, automatic investing, living below your means, it's not flashy, but it has a 100% success rate for most people. Everyone's chasing the next big play. You can go on YouTube and find people telling you side hustles and this and where to invest for a 100x return. But at the end of the day, the tried and true plan, if you want to build your financial, future, your freedom, your foundation, is going to be built through boring investments, the S&P 500, building in silence, slowly over a long period of time, and just being consistent. And to a lot of people, it is very boring. But this is the tried and true plan. This is the way I've grown my net worth. This is the way a lot of people grow their net worth. So while yes, it's not flashy, you're not hitting it big, you're not, doing these crazy things, boring is always going to win in the long run. So this, if someone tells you, hey, boring's going to get you rich, this is actual solid wealth building advice. This is an easy S tier. The next piece of advice financially you might hear as you progress through life is some people, especially if you're at a certain age, if you're in your later teens or your early 20s, you might get a lot of advice on, you need to buy a house ASAP. A house is going to be the fastest way to increase your net worth. It's a appreciating asset. It's going to do all these amazing things for you. And while yes, this made sense in our parents' time, if we're just being honest with ourselves, this doesn't really make sense anymore. This is kind of outdated advice. And yes, I do see the, amazing benefits of owning a house. But there's a lot of things people don't take into account when it comes to buying a house. There's a lot of hidden expenses along the way. And, buying too early or stretching yourself to afford a home that you really can't afford, well, that's going to trap you for a very, very long time. And the common counter argument you'll hear to this is, oh, well, when you rent, you're just throwing money away. And, there's a certain truth to that. But if you're renting and you're being flexible, it's giving you mobility. You're not locking yourself down to a 30-year, a 15-year mortgage. You're living below your means when it comes to your rent. Renting's not all that bad. So I think buying a house ASAP, like I said, you'll hear people tell you need to buy a house as soon as you can. This is just not good advice anymore. This could be in the half truth, but I think nowadays, for the majority of people's whose situations I've seen, this is just bad advice. I don't think people need to buy a house ASAP anymore. While I do think it is a good goal for everyone to have, and I do think it's a great way to build your net worth and diversify your assets, this is just not feasible for a lot of people nowadays. So if you asked me in 2021 what advice I had for you, the 21-year-old version of me would have said, don't do anything but save your money. All I did when I was 21 was save my money. I didn't invest anything. I didn't understand inflation. I didn't understand compound interest. All I did every paycheck was just save money. I invested zero and I spent very little. And I thought I was a financial guru. I thought I was like Warren Buffett 2.0, just saving money. Realistically, this is not good advice. While saving your money absolutely is step one to getting control of your finances and being a financially literate person, saving your money is not the finish line. You are not going to be able to become quote unquote rich by just saving your money. You're going to have to invest it. You're going to have to make your money work for you. And saving your money does honestly the opposite. Your money actually loses value sitting in a savings account due to inflation. So you need to get your money working for you in the stock market, through investing, through buying assets, whatever it might be, your money needs to work for you. And don't get me wrong, you absolutely do need to save for emergencies and stuff that could come up quickly. But money sitting, especially in a low interest account, is just going to lose every year to inflation. So savings will give you that safe, nice little foundation. But once you hit that foundation you're comfortable with, you got to start investing to be free or start buying some appreciating assets. So this I'm going to put in the half truth category. I don't think just savings bad advice, but you got to get that money working for you. Buying assets, not liabilities. I've heard this a whole bunch from a bunch of different YouTubers and just people around me. They say, you always got to buy assets, stop buying liabilities. And this, amazing advice. Every dollar that you spend is either going to move you forward and closer to your, freedom or your financial future, or it's going to move you further away. You always want to buy assets. My biggest liabilities were always cars. I'm a car guy. I've loved cars. I had a Subaru WRX. I had a BMW 340i. I had a Tesla Model 3 Performance. All those liabilities cost me so much money. Nowadays, all I do is buy stocks. I buy appreciating stocks, buy the S&P 500, I buy Bitcoin, anything that I can grow my money. So buying assets instead of buying liabilities is one of the best things you can do for yourself, because assets are going to put money into your pocket. Once again, stocks, index funds, and assets can even be skills like investing in yourself, right? Or a side hustle, whatever it might be. And while liabilities might look good, like a car or really nice clothing or, things of that nature, at the end of the day, it's just pulling away from the true financial success that you could have. So buying assets and not liabilities, this is actual solid wealth advice that's going to grow your financial foundation for sure. I've heard a lot of people say this. I've said it to myself where it's like, all right, dude, I just got to work hard. Everything's going to fall into place. And while sure, it's always good to work hard, effort matters, but effort's not everything. If you're working hard, but you're going the wrong direction or you're making the wrong financial moves, you're not doing anything to benefit yourself. So for example, if you're working 60 hours a week, you're putting in a lot of work, working overtime, making a lot of money, putting your head down, getting your hands dirty, but then you're maxing out your credit cards, you're buying designer clothing and shoes and not investing any money, you don't have a 401k set up, you don't have an investment account set up. That hard work, I hate to admit it, is not doing anything for you. It's just wasted hard work. But if you're working hard and you're investing, you're setting up your 401k, you're saving money, you're trying to buy assets, well, at that point, working hard's amazing. So while yes, working hard is great, you also need to be working hard and putting the right systems in place and moving the right direction. Because without the right systems in place or the right direction, all of the work you do, all of the financial success you have is going to be ruined if you don't have those systems in place. So I think working hard and everything will fall into place is a half truth. You have to have good, financial habits. You have to be investing your money. And then I do believe that is the correct thing. So if you are anything like me and you're always looking at how can I make money, what are the things I can do to make money, it seems like the new fad for everybody is you need a business to be rich. If you want to be successful in 2025 and 2026, you need a business. And more than likely, the people who are telling you you need an online business are the ones who are also selling you a course for an online business. And this one is just everywhere online. But the truth is, Most people, people you see driving on the road, 90% of the people you're going to meet in life build great amounts of wealth and a very comfortable earnings and living by just saving and investing, not running a business. Not every person runs a business. And let's be honest, there's a lot of people who are financially unsuccessful because they run a business. Just because you start a business does not mean you're going to be financially successful. A lot of, I know someone, a very close friend of mine who's a business owner, and he's not in the best financial position. It's taken him years to get his business up and running. Nowadays, it seems like anytime you go online and look up how to make money, every single person under the sun is going to tell you that you need a business to make money. But the reality is, you don't need a business to make money. If you're passionate and you want to open a business and you have a great idea, sure, maybe try it out. But at the end of the day, you definitely do not need a business to make money. So I'm actually going to put this one in the bad advice category, because I feel like a lot of the times, especially people in their later teens and early 20s, get discouraged if they have a normal 9 to 5 job, or they don't have a multi-figure business they're running, or they're not running some type of online social media business. The truth is, you don't need that to be financially successful. You can be perfectly, financially successful by getting a good paying 9 to 5 and having the smart, money systems in place. So you definitely don't need a business to be rich. The next one, I heard this a lot growing up, is don't talk about money. This, in my opinion, is bad advice too. I just spoiled where I'm putting it, but not talking about money is very bad advice in my opinion. I feel like not talking about money keeps a lot of people broke. Even today's day and age, YouTube has helped us a lot, but a lot of people treat their money like a secret. Like they need to hold on to it and not let anyone know how much money they're making, or not let anyone know their financial plan. And it's like something you're not supposed to discuss. But why? Why do we hold money so tightly to ourselves? And I think the reason why is because your financial habits say a lot about you. So a lot of people get embarrassed when they talk about money and they show that I can't save that much, or I make bad financial decisions, because they're embarrassed that they're kind of airing themselves out. But what's the first step to admitting, or what's the first step to fixing a problem? It's admitting you have one, right? And so I think talking about money is something we all need to get more comfortable with. That's why I started this YouTube channel in the first place, making $19 an hour, because too many people don't talk about money when they're not making a lot of money. It's easy to talk about money when you have a 6-figure investment portfolio and you're rich and you're driving a Lamborghini, but it's harder talking about money when you make $19 an hour and you're just trying to survive. And I think a lot of people need to normalize talking about money, especially when we don't make a lot of money. You should be talking about it, right? Because if you talk about it, you're going to get questions answered. You're going to learn. You're going to share wins. You're going to share mistakes. And that's how your financial literacy grows. If we never talked about money, I would not be in the financial position I am, because I wouldn't have learned so much. So I think not talking about money is just bad advice. I will always continue to talk about money. And I think it's something that we need to all talk about. We need to all get more comfortable with. We need to teach it in schools more, and just be a lot more open with how we're doing when it comes to our finances. The next advice you might hear, probably from someone a little bit older, is wealth is quiet, right? A lot of the loudest people online who are showing off their financial success usually have the least actual freedom and financial success. Real wealth is not the flashy car or the designer stuff or the chrome heart jeans or this or that. It's being able to wake up without panicking if you can afford to put food on the table. Being able to take your time back, go on vacations with your family, move through life with peace, with low stress. So wealth is quiet. This is great advice, because truthfully, this is something a lot of kids in the younger generation need to understand. A lot of people want wealth to show it off, but that's not how real wealth's going to be built, and that's going to put a lot of people in really bad financial situations. So I think wealth being quiet is great advice. This will definitely help a lot of people out there, and this is just overall good advice. The next piece of advice you might hear is someone telling you to track your spending. And now this differs from budgeting every penny. Tracking your spending is great advice, and I think it's definitely underrated, because not a lot of people actually track their spending. But the reality is this: if you want to get in control of your finances today, you could instantly pause this video right now, go on your bank statement, take a pen and a paper, and write down all your spending for the month. Or go on a Excel spreadsheet and track all your spending for the month. You could do that literally right now. I think for most people, the fastest way to start controlling your finances and just to get a financial picture of how you look is to track your spending. And once again, this is something you could do literally right now in the next 20 minutes. So I think tracking your spending, it gets overlooked a lot because a lot of people are like, okay, well, you kind of have an idea of what you spend throughout the month. Like we're on November, it's November 11th right now. I could probably tell you what I've spent so far this month. But that's the problem. Most people think they know where their money goes, but they don't. Until you actually track it on a piece of paper or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it might be, it gives you a lot more awareness, and you can see where your money leaks, right? You can start to see trends, and then you'll naturally get better at budgeting and spending your money. So I think tracking your spending, this is definitely underrated advice. The next piece of advice, and this might come, once again, if my older crowd's out there, I don't mean to talk bad about you, but this might come from some older people, is you always got to keep cash on hand. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, I have not carried cash on me in the past probably 5 years. I just don't do it anymore. I don't know a lot of people that carry cash on them, and you'll hear a lot of people saying like, oh, cash is king. It's always good to keep, a couple $100s on you. Why? There's ATMs everywhere. And then the common counter argument is, well, if you go to ATM, they take $2. Well, I'll be honest, I would rather an ATM take $2 than me drop my wallet somewhere or me get my money stolen in public. I'd rather just go to an ATM and pull out $100 and get a $2 fee, slapped on top of that. I think keeping cash on hand is something that not a lot of people do anymore. And realistically, everything is going so technology based. Like, I'll be honest, at first I used to hate Apple Pay. I literally use Apple Pay everywhere I go. I don't even insert my cards anymore. I literally just use Apple Pay. It makes it so much easier to use. And once again, it's like, I get it if you want a little bit of cash savings, like in your house somewhere, if that makes you feel more stable. But at the end of the day, any cash on hand is not going to do anything for you. If you had like $300 cash on hand, I would rather you take that $300 and go throw it in a high yield savings account versus keeping it in your wallet somewhere and then just pull that money out when needed. I think anyone who tells you to keep cash on hand nowadays, I think it's just bad advice. I think everything's so technology based. I mean, we literally walk into restaurants and you scan a QR code to get a menu now. So I don't think having cash on hand really does anything for most people nowadays. All right, so the next advice, and I've told this advice to people I know too, is to cut small expenses, right? And this is teeter-totters, right? Because while cutting small expenses, if you go on any financial YouTuber and you look up, or if you go on YouTube and you look up how to stop spending money or how to save money, the first thing people are going to tell you is cut small expenses. And once again, the reason people tell you this is because it's really easy to do. It's easy to not go to Starbucks tomorrow morning. It's easy to, cut out that $5 coffee. And it's classic, amazing advice. But I do think cutting small expenses misses the point just a little bit because most people don't really go broke from buying lattes every day. While yes, $5 a day definitely adds up. At the end of the day, you go broke from not having a system or living way above your means or, spending over 40% on your mortgage or your rent. So while cutting small expenses is a good, is good financial advice for someone to give out to you, I do think you need to take this with a grain of salt because, for example, here's a good example. If I have a $900 car payment and I make $3,000 a month and I go, oh, you know what? I'm going to get my finances in check because I'm going to cut out coffees every day. Bro, that's not really doing anything for me. I need to get rid of that $900 car payment versus cutting out the lattes every day. I think cutting small expenses is a little bit of a half truth. Just take it with a grain of salt. And once again, audit your situation. If you're have crazy amounts of debt or you're overspending on a car payment, or overspending on your rent or mortgage, maybe cutting small expenses isn't the starting point for you. Maybe it's worrying about those bigger chunks and then working back to something like that. The next thing you'll hear people say is your emotions control your money more than math does. And this is amazing advice too, because money is not about numbers. I know that's going to sound kind of stupid, but bear with me. Your money is tied a lot more to your emotions than you think it is. People who stay calm when everyone else is panicking, or when the stock market's crashing, or when inflation's at an all-time high, those are the people who end up wealthy because they make the correct financial moves. They follow their plan. They don't get freaked out by the news. They don't get freaked out by the internet, and they do the right things. And you can't build wealth if every dip in the stock market or every big purchase makes you spiral. And, the reason why is because the math behind it's pretty easy, right? We know that when the stock market pulls back 5%, like you're investing in the S&P 500, we know historically the S&P 500 goes up pretty much year over year, right? Since the start of the S&P 500, it's done nothing but go up. But what happens is, even though people are fully aware of this, and you have investors who are fully aware of this, when the S&P 500 drops 3%, you start seeing, news headlines like America's failing, everyone sell your shares, it's the end, everything's changing. But the people who are just non-emotional about it and they're like, oh, it's just another day in the stock market, and they keep investing, those are the ones who come out on top. So try not to let your emotions get in the way of your money. Don't let your emotions control when you sell your shares or when you do this. It's always good to have a plan in place. So, your emotions controlling your money more than the math does is great advice, because a lot of people who do not have control over their emotions will definitely feel the repercussions of this. And let's be honest too, when you're feeling emotional, what do? You want to spend more money as well. So not only will you consider selling your shares or doing things that you shouldn't be doing, like, selling a dip or something like that, you're also going to want to spend more money on top of that. So make sure your emotions are in check, especially when it comes to investing and managing your money. So I've heard a lot too growing up that you need to follow your passion, right? I heard this a lot at school, like, oh, whatever your passion is, that's what you got to follow. You got to attack that. And passion is great, but the reality is passion's not going to pay your rent. It's not going to put food on the table. So people always say, just do what you love and the money will follow. Or, if you love doing this, give it your all. And while yes, to a certain extent that is okay, at the end of the day, you need to work on building skills and then use those skills in something you care about to make it financially make sense for you. For example, if I'm very passionate about art, right? But I'm making $300 a week living in New York City following my passion for art, unless I'm truly super happy, and if that's a situation you're in and you're truly happy with that, then God bless you. But if you're not, maybe it's time to pull back on that passion and focus your time and attention to something that's actually going to build you a financial kind of playground, and then from there you can roll some of your free time into your passion. So I think following your passion is a half truth. I don't think it's going to make a lot of people in the financial position they want to be in. So it's definitely something that you need to take with a grain of salt. Next, people are going to tell you to avoid lifestyle debt, also known as lifestyle creep. This is amazing advice. Look, people like to talk about quote unquote good debt, right? Like investments or education or maybe even some type of home. And then there's I want it now debt, right? And this can be, I don't know, cars. This can be, maybe financing a vacation. Some people finance clothes. You're paying for moments that are pretty much already gone. And using debt for things that fade is just not a good idea in general. And a lot of the times with lifestyle debt or lifestyle creep, this is usually followed by some type of raise you might get. And then you think to yourself, well, I deserve a new car, or I deserve a new watch, or I deserve a new piece of technology. And while I get the thinking behind that, and I definitely fell for that a lot when I was younger, and every time I'd get a raise, I'd go find something new to buy, that's what keeps you trapped. If you can take the money you make off a new raise and roll that into investments or roll that into assets, man, that raise is going to have a huge return on investment. So I think avoiding lifestyle debt or creep is great advice. This is A tier advice by far. Probably could be S tier, but I'm going to keep it in the A tier because I know a lot of people fall into it and they can still get back on their feet from it. But try to avoid lifestyle debt as much as you can. Living below your means, you've probably heard me talk about it before. You've probably heard people talk about it before. This is probably one of the most common financial advice things that are thrown out there. And living below your means sounds really obvious, but let's be honest, it's very rare for a lot of people. Living below your means, a lot of people stay away from it because they think, oh, if I live below my means, I need to be cheap. But it doesn't. All living below your means does is creates a space between income and expenses. So what you can do is, but with that space, that free space between income and expenses, that's your space for investing, for saving, for buying, for enjoying your time. So living below your means, honestly, it's going to create the most amount of value in your life because you're actually going to have money ready to utilize. And if you're really into shoes and you live below your means and every month you have 500 bucks left over, you can start a little shoe fund. And then, once you get a certain amount, you can go buy yourself a nice pair of shoes, whatever it might be. Living below your means is top tier advice because if you can actually implement this, not only are you going to be able to invest more, save more, do whatever you need to do, but the biggest cause for a lot of people when it comes to depression, anything like that, is anxiety and stress with their finances. And living below your means is going to cut 90% of that financial anxiety and stress completely out of your life. So living below your means, this is S tier advice. More people need to do this. So here's some really good advice that you probably don't hear too often, but money does not change you. All it does is simply reveal you. Now, this is very true. If you are reckless when you're broke, please do not think any amount of money is going to make that better. Don't think, because I don't have a good financial plan making $12 an hour, once I make $80K a year, I'll have a good financial plan. It does not work like that. Life comes at you fast. You're going to realize, you know what? I think I'm just bad with money. And if you're, if you're very generous and disciplined and you have a plan in place with your money now, that's only going to grow and get better as your income expands. And let's be honest, money does not fix most of the problems that people has. It kind of just magnifies what's already there. And we see this all the time with people who get very, very, very financially successful and then crash their cars, do bad things to themselves, get really bad habits, become really mean people. We see it all the time, especially with celebrities and some YouTubers. Money brings out sometimes the worst in people. So this is great advice because at the end of the day, you need to see who you are as a person now. And if you are thinking to yourself, well, I'm only like this because I don't have a lot of money, or I only act like this because I don't have a lot of money. Having any amount of money in the world is probably not going to fix you. You got to start at the core, which is yourself first, and then you can grow above that. So this is A tier advice. You don't hear it spoken about enough, in my opinion, but this needs to be talked about more. This has become very popular too nowadays, is multiple income streams. A lot of people will tell you need to build multiple income streams, and you don't need to have 5 businesses. When I talk about multiple income streams, it doesn't mean you need to have a YouTube channel and 3 businesses on the side, a car washing business, and your full-time job. That's definitely not what this means. It just means more, having more than one way to grow your money. So this can be, having a full-time job, maybe having a side hustle, and then dividend income from your investments. But anything like this that you can have multiple income streams is amazing if anyone can actually do this. Now, this is one of those things that's obviously a lot easier said than done, but when your income slows, if you have multiple income streams, you're not going to panic, right? Because you got backup from different sources. And that safety net is always underrated. That safety net, I would kill to have that type of safety net. So making more money from different areas, dividend income, social media, your full-time job, maybe a part-time job, a side hustle, a business, whatever it might be, it gives you a lot of flexibility and a peace of mind. So building multiple income streams is definitely underrated advice. If anyone can do this successfully, you're in a pretty good financial position. So the next piece of advice you'll see, especially if you watch like Dave Ramsey, is a lot of people are going to say, never touch credit cards. Do not use credit cards. And this is a 50-50 for me because a lot of credit card usage when it comes to the fear of credit cards comes from the fact that people are not going to be disciplined using credit cards. The reality is this: if you're a business owner and you travel a lot and you have a travel credit card that gives you points and free flights, why would you not use it? That'd be a great use case for a credit card, but you would need to be disciplined in paying it off. And that's where we see the biggest problem. 90% of people are not disciplined enough to actually use their credit card properly. If you fall in that small majority of people that you can pay off your card every month, you're disciplined, you strictly use it for points, I think it's a great way to get a little bit of money at the end of things. Like I remember last year, I have a Discover card and they were doing 5% cash back on Amazon. And I used that card for the whole month of December for Christmas gifts. At the end of the month, I had a nice little chunk of cash back waiting for me. I used that to pay down the debt, and then I paid all the rest of it off. That was a great way to use a credit card. But a lot of people will take that very overboard. So at the end of the day, credit cards, they're not really the enemy, right? Like I said, it's the lack of discipline. So if you use them correctly, they're also going to build your score. They're going to give you rewards. They're going to protect your money. But if you can't pay it off monthly, maybe stay away from credit cards. So this is one of those ones where it's definitely a half truth when people tell you to never use credit cards. Because while yes, a lot of people are very undisciplined with them and make a lot of very bad financial decisions, the ones who can use credit cards to their advantage actually see some pretty decent payoff. Paying yourself first is some of my favorite financial advice because it's what I've been doing for a very long time. Paying yourself first is very simple, but it's extremely powerful if you use it the right way. Basically, what paying yourself first is before bills, before food, before spending anything, you pay your future self. So what that means is every time you get paid, automatically, you don't have to do this manually, automatically, by setting this up, you send money to a portion of your savings or your investing the second your paycheck hits. And you'll be shocked how fast and easy it is once this starts to grow because you're giving yourself that time. And once you know you invested and you saved first, you're giving yourself also that freedom to spend whatever's left over. So for example, like a typical pay period for me, by the time the money hits my actual checking account, half my money's been saved, half my money's been invested. And the money that's actually in my checking account, I can use that for spending if I choose, or I can use it for investing or saving as well. But off the top of my paycheck, I already got 20% getting invested. I already got 10% getting saved. And that's how I like to structure my pay. So I think paying yourself first is A-tier advice because it's super easy. You can automate most of the stuff and you don't have to really deal with it. And I love automating investments and savings because I hate doing it manually, just being honest with you guys. So I've heard this a few times, and this one just makes me cringe when I hear it. But some people will tell you, don't invest in the stock market. It's gambling. The stock market's gambling. And this one will get thrown around by anyone who just doesn't understand the stock market. If you think the stock market's gambling, you just don't understand how the stock market works. Now, if you trade like a gambler, well, yeah, that's risky. If you're getting in the stock market to trade options or to day trade, yeah, sure. At that point, you're going to make it a little bit tricky on yourself to actually win, and those people are going to feel validated. But if you're investing for the long term, you're buying into the S&P 500, you're buying into high growth ETFs, you're diversifying. I mean, that's just pure ownership. You're buying pieces of companies that are going to grow over time. It only feels like gambling when you don't really know what you own or where your money's going. So people, if you have people in your circle or you're trying to invest and you have people saying, bro, don't invest, the stock market's just a gamble, don't listen to those people. Invest for the long term. Don't fall into the trap of day trading or options trading. While yes, people have made heaps of money on it, I don't even feel comfortable with it. And I've been investing for almost 3 years now. So stock market is a gamble. This is just bad advice. Once again, I would not recommend listening to people who say this. This is some other financial advice that I've heard too from people. This isn't, I guess, advice, but you might hear people tell you the system's rigged, so why bother? And look, we're all adults here. Is there market manipulation in the stock market? Of course. Is there a market manipulation in cryptocurrency? Of course there is. But while yes, there's parts of the system that are unfair, giving up is not going to make your life any easier. And there's people who use this type of mindset to justify spending more money and to justify not putting financial plans in place and to justify just doing nothing. And the truth is, no matter what the system looks like, no matter what's being manipulated or cryptocurrency being manipulated, you need to build the habits of saving, investing, and discipline because that will always work no matter what. And there's just too many people now that think the system's rigged and they say, oh, you know what? I'm not going to invest, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that because the system's rigged. But at the end of the day, you can't let that hold you back. You got to play the game of this investing. You got to play the game of savings. You got to make yourself a better person where you can and just try to be and do the best things you can to put yourself ahead. And while, yes, at times it might seem hard with inflation and groceries and rent and car payments and everything just everything seeming like it's rising and wages not really keeping up, while I get that's a hardship for a lot of people and a struggle for a lot of people, you can't let it discourage you, and try to make it right, and try to live this life. We only get one life, so you got to try to do what you can to put yourself on top. So I think people saying the system's rigged and therefore don't do anything about it, this is also just bad advice. I would not listen to people who tell you this, because it's definitely a very like doomer mindset. The next advice is time in the market beats timing the market. No one will ever time the market perfectly. If you are new to investing, you don't really know what I'm talking about. Basically, timing the market versus timing the market means this. Would I rather A, invest $10,000 into the S&P 500 right now? Or would that would be time in the market, because I'm putting my money in the stock market right now. Or would I rather B, hold on to that $10,000 and then wait till the S&P 500 dips 5% to invest that money? That's trying to time the market. And realistically, no one can successfully try to time the market. Most people are going to see the most gains and success when they get their money in the market, because yesterday's lows were today's all-time highs. I don't know the exact saying for it, but the stock market continues to go up and up and up. And while yes, there's going to be days with pullback, no one can time it perfectly, and no one can time the bottom of that pullback, So you just need to get your money in the market. You need to get it working for you. This is some of the best advice that anyone's ever given me, because once again, not even the pro investors can time the market properly. It's a very, very tricky game to play if you try to time the market. The people who truly win are the ones who just keep showing up consistently, investing weekly, daily, monthly, whatever it might be. Just set it, forget it, and let compound interest do the rest. So this is actual solid wealth building advice for sure. And lastly is the advice of money cannot buy happiness. Now, this is one of those things that it's very overused in my opinion. Money will never fix deep problems with yourself, with your family, with your loved ones, none of that. But it 1000% will buy you a peace of mind. It'll buy you freedom. It'll buy you options. And being broke isn't fun for anybody. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there right now that if you got $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, you found it on the ground, you'd be pretty happy, right? And yeah, it's not going to fix your long-term, plans, but it's going to give you that's going to take a lot of stress off your shoulders really quick. So I think people who say money can't buy happiness, while there is some truth to that, at the end of the day, if you had the money, you had the financial systems in place, you would just be a lot less stressed. You'd be able to enjoy your life just a little bit more. So I think this is one of those half truths where a lot of people like to farm this way too much, like, oh, money can't buy happiness. And you notice it always comes from like the ultra rich people. Like, it's always the ones who are like in the penthouse with the multiple Lamborghinis, and they're like, bro, money doesn't buy happiness, bro. It's all about living life. Those are the ones who always say this. But at the end of the day, if we all had an extra $10,000, $20,000 in our bank account, we'd be a lot less anxious, a lot less stressed, and probably a little bit happier, if we're being honest. So this is my tier list for some of the best and some of the worst financial advice that you might get out there. If we go through the S tier, boring is going to make you rich. That's great advice. Buying assets, not liabilities. That's great advice. Emotional spending, keep your emotions in check when it comes to investing and spending. That's great advice. Living below your means, amazing advice for people. And time in the market is going to be timing the market. Those are all S tier advice. Hey, if you guys don't agree with me, comment on this video. Let me know where you would put certain things. Let me know what you agree with. Let me know what you disagree with. And I will catch you guys in the next video. If you guys enjoyed this, I'd appreciate a subscription and a thumbs up. We are almost 700 subscribers away from 10,000 subscribers. So I'd really appreciate if you guys would subscribe to this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good day.